Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today doing a bit of a discussion on the current state of the game for Titanfall 2 multiplayer. I'm going to be doing one of these after every significant patch that goes live for Titanfall 2 multiplayer. Now, obviously, the most recent patch was all of the changes that we saw with the Angel City's Most Wanted DLC. Outside of the inclusion of new content, there were a huge list of modifications made to the overall multiplayer experience. We're not here to list off every single one of them and discuss every single one of them. We're more so here to talk about game feel post-patch, because I feel that that's what most of us can actually connect with on a, average perspective. Looking at numbers all day long doesn't mean crap to me. I'd rather just talk about how it feels, what I'm seeing from a personal experience, and of course ask you guys to go ahead and share your personal experiences with me down in the comment section below. We do need to talk quickly though about the change that was made to Cloak. That's right, Cloak was completely modified. Thank goodness. It now feels like a proper tactical ability that has an element of risk and reward. As soon as you engage a target, as soon as you fire your weapon, Cloak completely disengages like it did back in the days of Titanfall 1. This means that you can use it for navigating the environment with some sort of concealment. You can use it as a great setup tool for performing large flanks, but as soon as you pull the trigger, you're exposed. You have to wait for the cooldown. Again, proper risk and reward. Love where Cloak is now. It's an ability that I'm more than happy to use, and I have some loadouts coming up very soon that will be making use of the Cloak Tactical. Let's talk about Titan balance though, right? There were changes made to Tone. Apparently there were changes made to Northstar's core ability. There's been modifications across the board, but how does it feel? What am I seeing when I boot into a public match? I will say in Last Titan Standing, Tone still seems to be a potential stack. It happens every now and then. It seems to be less so than it was pre-patch, so I'm good with that. And we're also seeing the rise of like 3 Titans now. And I think a lot of this was just psychological. It didn't even really have anything to do with the patch changes. The plain and simple fact is Legion and Ion have always been really powerful. And now they seem to be sitting at the same table with Tone. So Tone, Legion, and Ion seem to be the 3 most used Titans, at least that I'm seeing in my experiences. They sit at the exact same table, while Ronin, Scorch, and Northstar, they're over at the kids' table. They're good. They cause a bit of mischief. They can wreak some havoc. But I do feel there needs to be certain things done to boost the overall power, the lethality of those 3 Titans in their own respective ways. I'd love to see Ronin have a little bit more melee damage. I think he should be rewarded more for getting in close and shredding enemies with his sword. That's something that just is really weak, especially his sword core. When it comes to Northstar, that core ability, man, something needs to change. You've got missiles raining from the sky, and they do next to no damage, especially when compared to the core ability of someone like Tone. I don't understand that, juxtaposition there between Tone's core power and Northstar's core power. Why is Northstar's core so incredibly weak and useless when compared to that Salvo core? I don't understand why you're being shoehorned into the weak core section of the group. It doesn't make sense to me. Something needs to be done there to make that core seriously work. As for Scorch, honestly, I think really highly of Scorch. I think Scorch is one of the most difficult Titans in the game, though, because of his engagement range, right? You can launch his primary weapon relatively far, but it's slow moving, it's easy to avoid. But most of his damage is done at the same range that he can deploy his gas canister and, of course, start to layer and stack that damage over time. That's where Scorch starts to excel. So he has to really work hard to get into a specific environment where he can maximize all that damage and maximize those engagement distances, which makes him he's a difficult Titan to play. He's a lot of fun, and I have a guide coming up very soon for him because I really, really love playing Scorch. I genuinely do. But I would say he's one of the more challenging Titans. I don't know that he actually needs any changes, but he is more challenging. So I'm pretty happy with the Titan balance right now. I think seeing 3 Titans sitting pretty much side by side is a really good sign that we're moving in the right direction here. And I do understand fully that there are a lot of psychological influencers going on here. People playing certain Titans because all of a sudden they're seeing the effective nature of these Titans, or all of a sudden the rest of the community is playing that Titan. That's a huge element of game development and balancing, right? It's a big thing that developers have to take into consideration, is the numbers compared to what the players are actually perceiving. I don't think Scorch is any less effective than Ion, I really don't. I think they can sit in the same tier, but again, it's about player perception right now, and of course, the difficulty and the challenge that the player sees with someone like Scorch compared to Ion. Ion can just, sit back technically and harass people all day long. Well, Scorch really has to work to set up his targets and to deploy all of that wonderful fire stack damage. So, psychological influence is a big part of a game like this when we talk about multiplayer, and I think that's going to play a big role in the coming months as we see what Respawn does as we move into 2017. But right now, I'm pretty happy with Titan balance. Again, I think diversity is up, which is a positive. We're seeing less tone stacking, and that's just good for the game all in all. Let's talk a little bit about weapon balancing, though. Honestly, when I look at Titanfall 2's multiplayer, I recognize that this is a high lethality experience. We've got very quick time to kill when it's pilot versus pilot, and almost all the weapons in the game are just really lethal. They land shots effectively, and they kill targets quickly. Meaning I can use the alternator, I can use the hemlock, I can use the volt. I can feel like I'm doing well with all these weapons once I become comfortable and acquainted to their usage and their performance. But the bigger issue arises when one weapon from one weapon class seems to excel in an area that another weapon class was designed to perform well in. That's the case that is currently happening with the R201 assault rifle. It is really accurate, it is incredibly stable at medium to long range, headshot, at that certain distance, it's just super effective, and on top of that, it is incredible in hipfire scenarios. So right now, the R201 as an assault rifle is outclassing almost all of the SMGs in an environment where they should be excelling. That's where I start to see an issue, all right? I don't actually have a problem with people using the R201. I just don't like that its current state is making it more effective than the Volt and the Alternator in close quarters engagement. Something needs to happen there. We need to see some modifications, some reduction to this thing's accuracy while hip fired. Whatever, something needs to go down, because right now, honestly, if you were playing in a very competitive setting, you'd be insane to use anything other than the R201, in my opinion. I think a lot of the pro players would completely agree with me right now. It's just that effective, it's just that versatile, it's just that powerful across the board. So that's really my only complaint with weapon balancing right now. Otherwise, I think the game really does feel great. I didn't think it felt terrible before. I just didn't like seeing all the tone stacked. Weapons have always been relatively fine to me. I think in a public setting, you worry a lot less about that stuff. You find ways to counter it, you find ways to deal with it. There are so many other elements, like skill requirements or areas in which skill matters in Titanfall 2 multiplayer, that having a weapon that's a little bit too versatile, a little bit too powerful, doesn't absolutely annihilate the entire multiplayer experience like it would in other games. You still have everything going on with mobility. You still have the fact that majority of the game is spent in a Titan as well as on foot. There's a huge amount of factors that go into Titanfall 2 multiplayer that kind of safeguard it from, really ever being affected by one specific weapon or one specific element being too powerful. So that's a good thing for Respawn, and that's a good thing for us when it comes to Titanfall 2 multiplayer. I want to talk briefly about my matchmaking experience. I would say that it's been actually really quite good. You can never expect in a public setting, whether you're playing alone with a group of friends, to have every single match be right down to the wire, super close. But I have enough of those matches that in a 1 to 2 hour session every single night, I walk away feeling really happy with my experience. There's a few doozies here and there, but again, when we talk public matchmaking, I think that that's always going to be an issue. You'll never be able to completely perfect that. So all in all, post-patch, really happy with where the game is. It's a lot of fun to play. Still, again, Titan diversity is up, and I'm really excited to see what Respawn does after the holidays as we push into 2017. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about the current state of game. Is there anything that stands out to you as an issue, any concerns, anything based on your personal experiences that you would like to share? Feel free to throw them down in the comments section below. Happy Monday to you guys. I hope you have an outstanding week ahead. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.